Lights of the city burned like fireflies against the velvet sky, but nothing could prepare anyone for the storm that was about to unfold. It began with a whisper, a chilling leak that slithered across the internet like a shadow refusing to stay hidden. Backstage at the Golden Bell Awards 2025, a crew member had murmured words that shattered the calm. "He's coming." The identity was cloaked, but within minutes the world already knew who those two words belonged to. Wang Yibo. The man who had avoided this stage for years, the star who had walked away from headlines that never stopped chasing him, the mystery wrapped in silence. And as the news spread like wildfire, fans clutched their phones with trembling hands, jaws dropping, unable to breathe. Because where Yibo's name appears, another name is never far behind: Xiao Zhan. The thought alone was enough to send millions into hysteria. Could destiny truly be this cruel, or this merciful? Was it possible that fate had chosen this night, this award ceremony, this exact moment in history to orchestrate the reunion the world had long begged for but had stopped believing in? The air thickened with anticipation as the rumor transformed into a roar, drowning the city in chaos. Social media collapsed under the weight of hashtags, edits, and speculations. Some cried. Some laughed. Some refused to believe. Yet everyone knew that if Yibo walked through those doors, nothing would ever be the same again. The Golden Bell Awards 2025 was already set to be a night of elegance, but now it was charged with the dangerous electricity of prophecy. The red carpet glowed, celebrities paraded, cameras flashed, but none of it mattered. All eyes searched the horizon, waiting for the impossible. And then silence fell. A black car slid to the curb, sleek and sharp like a blade against the night. The door opened, and in that single breath the crowd lost its mind. Wang Yibo stepped out, draped in a midnight suit that clung to him like destiny itself, and every scream turned into a trembling prayer. It was him. It was real. The prodigal star had returned, not in whispers, but in flesh and bone. Fans cried so hard they could barely stand. Cameras shook in unsteady hands, and reporters tripped over words. He didn't smile, didn't wave. He simply walked, every step a drumbeat echoing into history, while behind stage, Xiao Zhan was moments away from stepping into the spotlight, unaware, or perhaps perfectly aware, that a story was about to collide with a past he could never truly escape. Inside the hall, the tension was unbearable, as though even the chandeliers trembled with the weight of anticipation. Yibo took his seat among glittering stars, his expression calm yet unreadable, while screens across the globe zoomed in to catch every blink, every shift of his jaw, every flicker of his eyes. Meanwhile, Xiao Zhan prepared to present one of the night's most prestigious awards, his smile dazzling yet carrying a shadow that fans, trained in obsession, did not miss. Millions watched from their homes, breathing in sync with a moment that had not yet happened, but already lived in the fever of imagination. And then destiny struck. The list of nominees glowed across the giant screen behind Xiao Zhan, and there it was, Wang Yibo's name, written like prophecy. Gasps ripped through the audience, fans collapsed into tears, and Xiao Zhan's fingers curled slightly around the envelope. The cameras cut to Yibo, whose stillness was thunder itself. The hall had never known silence like this. Xiao Zhan's lips parted, his eyes betraying the smallest flicker, a whisper of recognition, of memory, of everything left unsaid. And then, with a voice that cracked through eternity, he declared the winner, Wang Yibo. The explosion that followed was beyond sound. Fans shrieked until their voices vanished, reporters clashed to catch every angle, hashtags multiplied by the second. Yibo rose, his walk toward the stage dragging the world into slow motion. Every step was a story, every glance a chapter. Xiao Zhan held the award, waiting, a storm disguised as calm. And when their eyes finally locked, the air shattered. It was not a reunion of words but of worlds, the handshake that followed powerful enough to resurrect every rumor, every memory, every dream fans had held onto for years. In that grip, history was rewritten. What followed was chaos disguised as ceremony. The internet declared it the most iconic award night in history, clips replayed in every language, edits flooded with nostalgic soundtracks, and debates raged about whether the moment was orchestrated or simply fate's cruel generosity. Theories spiraled. A secret project, a hidden collaboration, reconciliation hidden behind sealed lips. Yet beyond the noise, one truth remained. Their bond was unshakable, undeniable, and alive in a way time could never kill. Backstage, the truth remained locked away. No photos leaked, no whispers escaped, no proof emerged of whether they met away from the cameras. But perhaps that was the beauty of it. Because the magic wasn't in what happened in silence, but in what the world had witnessed, the spark, the pause, the connection that refused to be buried. The Golden Bell Awards 2025 was no longer just an event. It had become a legend, a reminder that sometimes fate doesn't knock softly. It tears the door from its hinges, forcing two paths to collide. For fans, the night became a fairy tale carved into history, proof that no matter how wide the distance, no matter how deep the silence, destiny always finds a way. And as the lights dimmed and the night faded into whispers, millions were left clinging to one fragile hope, that this was not the end of the story, but the beginning of a new chapter. The silence that followed Wang Yibo's appearance was the kind that feels alive, as though the entire building had inhaled but forgotten how to exhale. Flashbulbs from the cameras stabbed the air in frantic rhythm, and the crowd became a living storm, surging like waves against the barricades. Every step he took forward was like a thunderclap. His shoes struck the marble floor with a cadence that echoed in the hearts of millions watching through glowing screens. For a moment, he didn't look left or right, but straight ahead, his face calm, unreadable, almost sculpted from stone, while fans screamed his name with voices that cracked under the weight of disbelief. Inside the venue, the chandeliers glittered, trembling slightly, as if even the crystals could sense the collision that was about to happen. Celebrities whispered in hushed tones, some clutching the arms of their seats, others unable to stop stealing glances at the legend who had just entered. His suit shimmered faintly under the lights, fitted so perfectly it looked like it was spun for midnight. He carried no smile, no wave, just an aura that wrapped him like armor, yet the very stillness of his presence shouted louder than chaos. He didn't need words. His silence was louder than any speech. At that same moment, behind the velvet curtains, Xiao Zhan stood tall in his own radiance, oblivious to the waves crashing outside, or perhaps deliberately choosing not to acknowledge them. His team adjusted his suit jacket, but his hands betrayed him. They fidgeted for a fraction of a second before he clasped them together, regaining composure. His lips curved into that trademark smile fans had memorized, yet beneath the glow of that smile flickered something hidden, something sharp. Was it nerves? Was it recognition? The world would never know, but the cameras waiting outside were ready to capture every breath he took. As Yibo entered the hall, the air bent around him, and it was impossible not to feel the shift. Even the cameramen seemed to know their task was no longer to film a ceremony, but to film history. The red light of recording beamed steadily on his face, framing every blink, every subtle tilt of his head. Every second his eyes wandered, too close to the stage, where Xiao Zhan was soon to appear. Fans watching at home typed frantically, timelines exploding with words like fate, destiny, prophecy, reunion. Edits were already being born in real time, pairing Yibo's entrance with flashbacks of 2019, with stolen glances from rehearsals, with laughter frozen in time. The hall itself had become an audience of statues. All that glitter, all the fabric, the perfumes, the gowns, it all faded into background noise. People weren't here to witness awards anymore. They were here to witness a possibility, a moment that hung like a fragile glass orb in the air, ready to shatter or shine. And yet, Yibo remained calm. He sat down, crossing his legs, leaning back slightly, eyes forward, while the audience buzzed around him like electricity barely contained. But even his stillness was dangerous, for everyone knew that still water can hide the deepest storms. Backstage, Xiao Zhan was given the envelope for the category he would present. His fingers brushed the golden paper, and for the briefest moment, he froze. The staff thought it was nothing, but fans who later replayed the clip swore that it was there. In that moment, that destiny whispered in his ear. He exhaled slowly, took his position, and stepped into the light, greeted by a deafening cheer that shook the hall. His presence was magnetic, his elegance undeniable, and yet the hall wasn't cheering just for him. They were cheering for the unspoken possibility that soon, across the hall, eyes that had not met in years might finally collide. And then it happened. Xiao Zhan, flawless under the spotlights, began his lines with the fluid grace of a performer who had mastered every stage he'd ever touched. But when the screen lit up behind him, revealing the nominees, the name that flashed like lightning through the hall was Wang Yibo's. Gasps, screams, tears. It was as if the roof had cracked open and released every suppressed emotion of the past years in one furious rush. The camera darted instantly to Yibo, and there he was, unflinching, unreadable, his gaze steady yet layered with something the crowd couldn't decode. Xiao Zhan's voice paused for the smallest fragment of time, so tiny it could have been imagination, yet sharp enough for millions of eyes to notice. The envelope tore open. The words slipped from his lips. The winner is Wang Yibo. The sound that followed was not applause. It was an explosion. Fans screamed as though they had witnessed the sun rise at midnight. Cameras wavered under the surge of bodies. Even celebrities gasped, some covering their mouths, some clapping too eagerly, knowing they were part of something the world would replay endlessly. Yibo stood. Each step he took up the aisle was slower, heavier, not because his pace had changed, but because time itself seemed to drag its feet, unwilling to let this moment pass too quickly. The stage was close, the lights brighter, the figure of Xiao Zhan sharper with each step. And then, at the very edge of history, they stood face to face. Their eyes met. It was not the loud crash fans had imagined, but something quieter, something infinitely more powerful. It was as though the world itself exhaled, the silence between them echoing louder than any scream. Xiao Zhan extended the award. Yibo reached forward. Their hands touched. That handshake was not just skin against skin. It was an earthquake, a collision, a resurrection. For fans, it was every unspoken dream given form, every unanswered prayer finally acknowledged. Edits were born within seconds, photos blasted across platforms, hashtags climbing faster than rockets. Some fans sobbed uncontrollably, others screamed so loudly neighbors banged on their walls, and some simply stared at their screens in stunned silence, unable to process that it was happening before their very eyes. And yet, on stage, the two stars said nothing beyond the formalities. Their lips formed words the microphones picked up, congratulations, thank you, but fans swore the true conversation was in the eyes. A flicker of memory here, a shadow of recognition there. It wasn't dialogue, it was an old song being played silently between them. The ceremony continued, but nothing that came after mattered. It didn't matter who else won, who else sang, who else appeared. The night had been claimed by a single moment, a collision written by fate, carried by silence, and immortalized by millions of beating hearts. As Yibo exited the stage with his award, Xiao Zhan turned gracefully back to the microphone, his composure intact, his smile untouched. But the camera caught it, a glimmer in his eye, a spark he could not disguise. Fans replayed that flicker for days, swearing it was proof of something deeper, something hidden, something waiting. When the night ended and the stars drove away in their sleek cars, the questions remained unanswered. Did they meet backstage? Did they speak in whispers no one heard? Did fate allow them more than what the cameras had captured? No one knew. But sometimes the unknown burns brighter than the truth. And on that night, it was enough.